Well, folks, welcome back. It is Friday once again. Welcome back into the breach. That was a song by the Braun Brothers. Was a particular band that was in Idaho in the 1980s, and that was a song about a area that Doc Z worked in when he was a Forest Service park ranger. Um, I'll go ahead and bring him on here again. Doc Z, how we doing?
We're doing good. 13 miles up the Yankee Fork in Idaho.
Well, I thought you would appreciate that little earbud by the Braun Brothers there.
Oh, I love that. Seeing them in the Plywood Palace was great.
As I remember, that was fun, but the drive to the Plywood Palace was pretty scary. I thought we were going to end up in the Snake River.
Oh, well, on that trip, yes.
Right.
Yeah. You remember the crazy Forest Service person that was driving us?
Yeah, Rick. We got to partying early that day.
Well, that was scary.
Dance with old Blue Dog.
Yeah, so I put up a picture of Bonanza Guard station there with you and I, and we had a friend who in college, he was a river raft guide on was it the Snake or the Salmon?
Salmon River.
Salmon River. And so he said, well, can you watch my dog this summer? And so we took his black lab, whose name was Blue, and we had the greatest adventures with Blue Dog that summer in the mountains of southern Idaho. Yeah.
Good dog. Yep.
So, Adrian, did you get the email that I sent you earlier?
Probably because I was putting some pictures together. I didn't have a chance to look at it.
Sure. I was just wanting to show a picture. I want to do a quick update for those who follow me on my Steel Rails podcast.
Okay.
With Bailey and Lucas. We received a locomotive sent to us from Iowa last night. She finally made it home.
Nice.
Into the roundhouse after about a week and a half transit from Iowa. Go figure. Burlington Northern right-of-ways, and they like to take their sweet time. But EMD SDP 40 number 325 in Great Northern livery. Oh, she's probably 60s.
Okay.
70s, made in that era. So she's in the Great Northern paint scheme. And what I found out today is we can think of her full restoration because of an anonymous donor basically wrote a check and said, here, go get it done.
How nice. Well, that's amazing. So it's going to take a lot of money and time for restoring.
Oh, definitely. Something like
but
that,
it'll be really cool.
Something like that takes a number of years, especially with the two-stroke diesels in there.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, he volunteers at the St. Paul Train Museum. And so they have several tracks out back.
Yeah, we're right off of a two-place main line, which I see Burlington Northern, UP, Twin Cities, and Western all use that right of way. And that's actually how we get our equipment up to Osceola for our excursions. But yeah, she came up from Iowa, and we're going to put her on display and probably also use her as an excursion train up in Osceola, pulling our Great Northern cars, passenger cars.
That's really cool.
I just wanted to let this listeners know, and then also let them know tonight that we have started a 3-show series on the U.S. Forest Service. And last week, as a recap, we talked to Doc Z about his time in the Forest Service as a wildland firefighter. And this week we're going to be talking to him about his dual duty as a park ranger in the Chalice National Forest. So, oh, there we go. There's one of your patches. That's cool.
Well, and when he went to being from a firefighter to campground host, where we had this guard station called Bonanza, that's when I joined him. And so this was about 1982, right? I mean, this is like our honeymoon. It was absolutely stellar, breathtaking mountain country.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, yeah. We would sit on the this is the back of the house here, but we would sit on the front porch and look up across the river on the mountain across us. We could see wild goats running around, mountain goats running around up there.
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
So this is kind of what Dan was talking about here.
Yeah. That front porch right there, we would sit there in the evenings and we would look across the mountain.
There were a lot of mountain goats up here
Mhm.
across the way in that mountain.
So, as a ham radio enthusiast, is that a ham radio mast there?
Nope, that was just our radio that we had with walkie-talkies that gave us a boost to get up and over the mountains.
Oh, okay. So just a
we
repeater.
we could contact anybody in the Chalice National Forest with that.
Sure, but you didn't have like a HF set or anything in the guard station.
There was no electricity, so they blew up the Sunshine Dam down on the river, and the whole Yankee Fork went without power. So when we were there, there was no power. We had a big gas tank out front, LP gas, and we had gas lights. We had a gas stove. We had a gas heater, a gas refrigerator.
I mean, when you think about all the gadgets we have today and the cell phones and everything, our only means of communication up there was this Forest Service radio with this radio antenna.
It was like a super walkie-talkie.
And it was, I mean, we were like so relaxed, and when you think about today where you can barely go home without, having a connectivity to work, or like I work at home, right. I teach college at home, and I'm always connected, like this office is my work office, but it's also part of my home. So it's never totally separate. The beauty of it was we could really relax. You could really do downtime. Right. It was totally amazing. But yeah, that antenna was our for our only source of communication. We were miles up the Yankee Fork River. So pretty much wilderness area. It was absolutely gorgeous.
So then that was like a shortwave or a UHF set.
UHF, probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we had handheld radios, but this was a base station radio.
Right. We could take calls from other people with handhelds. And we would transmit the weather to, was it Chalice?
Yes.
So, and we don't have a picture of it, but there was a weather station on the side of the house with different equipment, and if Dan would do the daily weather. You have to read the clouds. Are they, I don't even remember the names. Are they like cumulus nimbus, or what type of clouds do you have? How much precipitation have you had overnight?
Temperature, humidity, all those things. So these flowers that are in the foreground, those are Chinese poppies that were brought over by the Chinese immigrants who worked a lot in this area when the area was being built.
As in poppy seeds?
Correct. Chinese poppies. You see them down there.
those are the poppies that they derive opium and stuff like that from them. Of course, this is in the raw state, but they were really beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
So on that weather station, you had like an anemometer, you had
Yeah. You'd open up the box and there was all the tools. You had a clipboard, you had to sign in, and then you went, instrument from instrument to instrument, what it all was. And then when you had it all written down, you'd call, up to Chalice or 318, which was our Clayton Guard station that we had originated from and lived at for a couple years before we came here.
because I know, we touched upon last week, we touched upon weather where, and this is a little bit different, talking between fire weather and normal weather of the day, but some of the groundwork and the basic things that you do taking, the weather, whether it be fire weather or a morning report, are pretty much the same.
Right. Yeah. Basically, I didn't contact anybody unless they contacted me. And then the only thing that we really, put out on there was the fire weather every day at 11.
I was going to say, wasn't it around noon? And I know that if you were busy in a campground, you could radio me to broadcast, go out and do the reading and broadcast it in. And I was able to do that a couple times. So, yeah.
So was it just you two at this station, or did they have other groups come in and use that as like a touching off point, other USFS workers?
Well, so Adrian got to go work in Stanley, Idaho at a mercantile, which is like a grocery store, but it had all kinds of stuff as well for camping and whatever. So she would do that most of the time during the day and then come home. And one of the best things about it is they would have steaks that had just expired from what they could sell. And we got to take them home for a reduced price. So we ate well that summer.
Yeah, they were pretty much close to free. And what's interesting now is like you pay more for aged steaks, aged meat. And it would be like right on the cusp of them turning, and the owner of the store would just say, "Hey guys, we're going to mark these off for you."
Well, and I mean,
so we ate a lot of good steak that summer.
If you cook it good enough, you're not. I mean, because you're killing it with germs with fire. So,
well, and those dates are a little not always accurate. But usually, especially when you start thinking about canned food, you can use it longer than it says. So,
right.
But it was fun working because I worked at what was called the Sawtooth Mercantile, and we had everything from clothing to your outdoor camping needs, your wilderness equipment, all your groceries. And Carol King, I never met her, but she lived down there. She had a place down there, and they would come in from her area, people to shop for her and stuff. And the other thing I remember about working at the Mercantile was on the way home one time, and it was a good 30-mile. It took probably an hour to get home. But see this dog here. He was out in like 10 miles from town.
Jogging along the road.
From Stanley, just jogging. And I like pull over our vehicle and I'm like, "Oh, you poor little dog, I'll take you home. You're, starving and all this." And I get home and I open the hatchback, and Dan is like, "That is a fat dog. That dog is not starving." He had absolutely no collar or anything. So that's what we called him that summer, was Fat Dog. And what I found out weeks and weeks later was that he was the town dog, and nobody in particular owned or claimed him, but he would rotate houses and rotate people. And so I ended up returning him to the town. But Yeah, that was Fat Dog. And
Nice.
Dan is gold panning here, which was really an interesting, I don't want to say it was a dichotomy, but it was different because Dan represented the kind of like the law to these gold miners,
Mhm.
And so with your Forest Service uniform on, you just had to be careful. These guys had claims and stakes for their gold. And Dan, I know, was involved in some espionage trips during the night to see if they were dumping tailings in the stream. So maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tom and I, Tom was in the area while we were there.
Tom is your cousin who worked.
Tom was my
for
cousin.
the
Tom.
Forest.
Yeah. From Pine Island, Minnesota. Shout out. And so we had gone to school together at the University of Idaho, and he was in forestry and I was in geology. So anyways, he's out tromping around in the woods, measuring forestation and things like that, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm
looking at scat.
Yeah, all that fun
All
stuff.
that fun stuff.
Yeah, measuring trees and the 3-finger forage finder. 4-fingered forest finder. The thing you set up and you can measure everything that's inside for sampling size.
Okay.
Anyways, I diverge. So yeah, on my days off that I had a day off, I would just go out and do some gold panning or go hiking or go explore some of the old cemeteries and things that are around there. Maybe poke through the old ruins of the mines.
Well, and I'm sure
there was a mission you were asked to go on. I don't know, maybe you can't talk about it from the Forest Service, but
no, that's fine.
Where you and Tom had like a top secret little mission you had to do.
They had a pretty good idea that one of the miners up the I forget what fork
Yankee
that one
Fork?
is.
Not the Yankee
But
Fork?
it comes off the Yankee Fork, and as you're heading up towards Clayton, not Clayton, Bonanza. As you're heading up there, just past Bonanza, where we lived, you turn left, and there was a really rugged trail that went up and around there, and it would get washed out from time to time because the amount of water come down. If it was a high rainfall up in the mountains, it would come wash it out. But they had an idea of who the miners were that were dumping tailings, and they shouldn't be dumping tailings. Tailings should go into a pond and settle out first, and then you could dump those.
Yeah.
Well, they asked if we'd go grab a couple samples on the down low and bring them back. So
and you're crossing into like claimed territory to do that, right?
No, we were just on a regular Forest Service road, but the tailings go into the river. The river flows down, and that little river flows into the Yankee Fork. And so I just, grabbed a couple of bottles and was in the back of Tom's truck, and Tom kind of drove on up, and then we figured a good spot, and then I just kind of bailed out and followed right down into the stream edge there. And he went up about a mile, turned around, come back. And by that time I had collected my samples, jumped in the back of the truck, and then we hauled ass out of there. And we moved quickly.
You're okay. The language police is on vacation right now, so there's no fine or penalty for that.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that level of doing things in secrecy, because mining is big, not only in Idaho, but in Alaska. And there's the same thing in Alaska where miners really don't take well to the authorities, not only the USFS, but the mining board and all that, because they think they're there to stop them from doing
or claim jumper.
Oh, yeah.
Claim jumpers are a big thing out there.
Yeah.
So, if somebody's trespassing on your claim, you got the right to dissuade them from coming back. And, and they
that's
did.
what I was worried. yeah, I mean, a lot of people up there heard that, they were self-armed, and, you can see that being in the wilderness, but I was just a little nervous that Dan had to go like do these secret missions on these miners or whatever
Well,
for the Forest Service. I'm like,
It was exciting.
come on, you
Right.
guys. Yeah.
So I see a vehicle in the background, and I kind of remember that. Why don't you tell us? And that looks like your personal vehicle.
That is my old yellow car, just like the Dan Seal song. Yep. It was about a 72 Vega wagon.
Nice.
We had a lot of adventures on that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It made a few trips from Minnesota to Idaho and back.
21 and a
You
half
could lay the
hours.
back, you could lay the back seat down and then crash out in the back. So we'd take turns driving.
Nice.
When isn't there that country song about your old Vega wagon or something? Or
Dan
Old
Seal,
yellow car.
old yellow car.
yeah.
So speaking of the Forest Service, did they give you transportation, or did you have to use your personal vehicle?
On the year that I got the guard station there, I got a pickle truck.
Okay.
It was a little Dodge D50 Ram.
Yeah, this was called Bonanza Guard Station. No kidding. I don't have a picture of it, but in the front of the guard station, there was this, maybe 25 yards from us was this big garage. And then on the other side of it, they had housing for their volunteers.
Okay.
And there were 2 women that summer. I don't remember their names. They were very sweet, that were volunteers. And one night over the Forest Service radio, they were screaming, and they said, somebody's trying to get in. Somebody's trying to get in. So Dan grabs the shotgun. Blue Dog follows Dan, and they both go out the door and leave the door open. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? I'm like, okay, you guys, and then what it ended up being a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And so they put the big
brown bear.
Mm-hmm. Put a big bear trap out for it, but it never fell for it. But yeah, that was like 2 a.m.
So Game and Wildlife came out and put out a rolling trap.
Yeah, they set up a big round trap there on wheels, and they put another one kind of back towards. There was a Boy Scout camp that was back behind us. Kind of, if you took that trail and you went out there, that's where the graveyard is back there, the Bonanza graveyard. But yeah, they had a place where we wash our clothes. We had to fire up a generator. Bring some water in and do our clothes and whatnot.
So you didn't have water on site, so you had to truck in water too?
No, we had water. So the water came from, in the picture before this, there was a picture of the guard station with a big hill up behind it. On the top of that hill was a lake, and they had a pipe that was piped down from the lake to our guard station. Yep, right up there.
Okay, so you had a gravity feed.
Yep.
Nice.
So we'd have to hook it up. They'd have to hook it up every spring, and then they'd have to shut it down every fall and drain it so that it wouldn't freeze over.
There was nothing that I remember going, I don't remember going, oh, gee, that was roughing it. I mean, we had everything. We had gas lights, a gas refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because even though we didn't have electricity, as Dan said, they had it at one time until the dam was blown up. And so we had the whole house was wired for electricity. So you had all these outlets and everything. So it was kind of funny.
They didn't work.
That dam, did it just go out of service, or was it maliciously taken out?
It was maliciously taken out.
By?
Oh, I'm being censored. Big brother.
Yeah, The
So you
only
got-
thing I can think of was that, like, I got a butane curling iron for my long hair, and I was just happy as a clam.
Yep. We had gas lights. We had gas heat. We had a gas refrigerator. We had a combination of gas or wood stove. And yeah, we were happy.
So, what were your main duties out there in the guard station?
Well, first of all, in the morning, I'd get up and I'd get my truck and I'd call into 318
Clayton Station?
Clayton Station that we worked out of. See if there was anything they needed me to do for the day. Sometimes they had something for me to do, like run up and fix a old water pump at the top of some campground or something like that. And then I would go down to the campground. So there are a number of campgrounds all the way down up to the river. And I'd have to go through those, clean the bathrooms, take out the trash, check there's a big pipe with a slit in it. That's where you would fill out your camping for the night and put in a check or money and stuff it in the pipe. So I had to collect that every morning and then bring that back. At the end of the day, or midday, I'd run down and drop it off at Clayton Guard Station.
So those were so you were taking care of campgrounds rather than being in that first responder mode. But did they have you do some things like that if it were in the area, or was that your main responsibility were the campgrounds?
Well, the DNR had guys in trucks and they had badges and carried guns. So if we were ever in any trouble, we called them on the radio.
Okay.
I never really had any problems. There was a biker gang that came in and camped and didn't pay. And I'm just like, the best thing for them to do is just go. And when they're done, I'll clean it all up.
Right.
Because there's no one around. And,
right.
They outnumber you, 15-1. So,
yeah, in that situation, like when you are the authority, but you're not like equipped for it or have any backup, and you've got 15 people that aren't going to do something and are tough crowd.
I don't even have
not all bikers, and I want to just pause and say not all bikers are tough crowds.
Right.
Yeah.
But, there certainly are the groups that are.
Except for the Mongols.
Yeah, the 1%ers, right?
Right.
Yep.
Well, and I can attest. I was not a lot of my listeners know, but I was a security officer for about 3.5 to 4 years, and I can attest to that. Where even if you do have backup, we were unarmed security, so you're going into a situation not knowing what the other side has, and my partner and I one night made a choice. We stopped these people because it was after hours and they were doing dangerous stuff in the parking lot. And we stopped them and we're going to do the whole show of force thing, So we walked out. He went to one car, pulled them out. I went to the other car, and all, 2 cars, all 8 doors open up, and all of a sudden we're outnumbered. And it's like, okay, get in the car. We're leaving. You guys shouldn't be here. So, but yeah, I can understand. And it's got to ramp up twofold when you're in the middle of nature and you have no direct communication. Yeah, you've got a radio, but
yep, we have a radio that we can communicate to all the other Forest Service radios in the nearby area.
You're really quite distant from, quite distant from anybody that can help you.
Well, and it would probably take a half hour to 45 minutes for someone to respond.
Yeah. You're like your own 911 out there.
Well, it was a good 20-minute drive from the Clayton station to where we lived.
Right.
Here is a picture of some of the ghost town buildings that were down below, like in our front, and we called it our front yard.
Mhm.
But there was a ghost town, and in fact, there was that one building, Dan, that had the old foot pedal sewing machine in it. That was in the ghost town. Was that in Custer?
Oh, you're thinking upstream from us at Custer. Yes, that's a much bigger town. Bigger town.
Yeah, I got some material from the mercantile where I worked, and then I made these little drapes for the guard
a little
station.
curtain for a guard station. They were
Went
beautiful.
into that ghost town to do it, into one building where they had this foot pedaled sewing machine.
Yeah.
It worked beautifully.
Machine. It was awesome. So
yeah, it really worked.
Just go in and leave the ghost an offering. Hey, I'm going to use this. I won't do any harm. I'll be gone in about an hour here.
Yeah, I don't think there were any malicious spirits in there.
No, everybody.
Well, not a lot of people know that, you know, that's out of west, and there are a lot of ghost towns. Because the westward boom in the 1860s and the 1850s was huge, and not a lot of towns made it. Some of the main towns, you know, lived over the boom and bust, and the small towns like Bonanza or Custer or some of these just once, and usually they sprung up because of mining. Now, if you had a mine that dried out in the area and that was your only form of revenue, once the mining company pulled out, or there might not have even been a mining company, it might just have been independent miners on a claim. Once that dries out and the money and they leave, well, the revenue source for the town dries up, and you know, they might put everything in the wagons, and they might, you know, go up to Coeur d'Alene, or they might go further down to Boise. But they're not going to stay there because, you know, the revenue source isn't there. So there's a lot of old neat things around there. I've been out there a couple of times. So when you guys were out there, this was early to mid 80s, and I obviously wasn't born yet, but you've taken me back, and I think, we went to the guard station once. I remember that trip.
Yeah.
We drove
we
down.
went to visit the dredge. We took Grandma Janie with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we drove down and we saw the Yankee dredge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a picture of the dredge, but yeah, that's a very big tourist attraction.
I think it was at one time. I can remember when we were there, it was pretty dilapidated and not safe.
Yeah, it's been taken over a number of times from different groups. I think the Park Service now hires some people that take care of it and do tours.
Because those are interesting pieces of mining equipment.
Right. They've also gone back and they've reclaimed a lot of the river, straightened it out. Or made it more meandering. I'm not sure, depending on which side of the dredging tailings it is, but it runs clearer and cleaner now than it did back then. And the road is like it was just a winding, narrow, crappy road back in the day. But now, you know, it's nice and straight and clean and like a highway.
So CR, we had the one incident, you know, over the Forest Service radio of the bear attack, or not a bear attack, bear trying to get into their place.
Yeah, they had some pies. They had some pies sitting on their sill there, cooling down.
The other emergency call we got in the middle of the night was a little bit more disconcerting. So Dan, do you want to talk about that, where Eva called us from Custer Lookout?
Sure. So in the summertime, they hire lots of people from all over the country to come and do positions. And usually it's in conjunction with some kind of a college grant type of thing. And so this
Or
person,
Job
Eva,
Corps or something like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Like kids would, not kids, but college adults would do their internships out here, and that's what Eva
Okay.
was doing.
Right. And so you had to get so many credits, so much time, so many different experiences, and then you'd get credit for that. So they, she was a colored woman from down south, lovely person, and they helicoptered her up to the top of the mountain and put her in this lookout tower. And
in Custer Lookout, hun, wasn't that like one of the most rugged ones?
Well, we hiked up to it. So you know how long it took us to get there, even with Blue Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no roads,
nowadays,
that's for sure.
Nowadays, there's trails and quad runner trails and stuff that go up there. You can get up there pretty quick. But back when we were there, you kind of had to like bushwhack it and get up there. Lots of talus slope, tailings kind of things. But then you pick your trail through it, wind up. There's little streams that you cross and whatever.
This is a picture of me hiking up there with one of our handheld radios.
Yeah. So I diverge. One, so the day she goes up, they bring her up there. They give her all, bring all her stuff up. They give her all the United States Forest Service equipment that she needs to do her job. And then they say goodbye. Here's the radio for 318 if you need anything, and they take off. So later that afternoon, we're done for the day, so we're back in our little guard station, and we hear over the radio, it's getting dark, and I don't know how to light my lantern. I'm like, oh, okay. So I picked up and I called her, and I said, all right, so what kind of lantern you got? And she goes, well, there's liquid that you pour in. Good. Okay, so take it outside, open that up, and fill it up, not all the way, but far enough, and then close that really tight, and then you pump the thing on the side a number of times until you feel some resistance. And then is there like a lantern, kind of a mesh that's on that? Yep, it's our mesh. Okay, then you light a match, and you stick it under there, and you turn the valve slowly, and boom, it should light. And then you adjust the light by turning the thing up and down. And she's like, okay, I got that. And she goes, well, I'm hungry, and I have some food, but everything's cold. And it was that was all night long. And we were.
It was sad because it really, really was a rugged lookout. It's nothing certainly I could have ever done.
Yeah. And
there were women that, did lookouts like that, but they usually had like a dog with them and
year after year. They were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this poor woman, she was a dear, but the backstory on it was, they knew she was from the city. They put her up there. We figured out in retrospect that it was because she was Black and they wanted just to get her out of there. Because when we went up there to help her that weekend, show her how to light her Coleman stove, and we actually brought her down for the weekend and then hiked her back up, because we're like, well, do you want to do this? What do you want to do? Do you want to try to get re-stationed? But they basically put her there for failure, and she wanted to try it, so we hiked her back up. But the backstory on it was they did this little questionnaire with her, and they're like, Eva, do you like to be by yourself? Do you like to be alone? No. Do you like? No. Are you okay with the dark? And all of the answers were negative, negative, negative. So they're like, great, let's drop
approved.
Right. And we were so naive. I grew up in Southern California, and we really, I was like one of the few Caucasian people in my neighborhood at the time. It was a great neighborhood. And, my best friend that I've been a friend with for 63 years, she not 63, but 60 years. She is Asian. And she told me, she said, I never experienced racism in our neighborhood. And I don't really remember it either. But if you go into other states like Idaho, she went to Portland and it was just god awful for her. And so Eva experienced that. And when we took her home for the weekend, Dan went through all the equipment. We had a great time, great, lovely lady. See if I have a picture of her. This is us when we hiked. When we hiked her back up. Was it Dan? I can't remember if this was on the way.
We took her back up, and then it got dark. It takes a while to get up there. And you're hiking.
Oh, it's a 6-hour hike, and the last mile last mile feels like it's more like climbing than, I mean, there's switchbacks to climb up, but it's
Blue on with us, so that was helpful.
You're in the dark, and
the last part towards the top, it was getting dark,
and so we hated to leave her. This is her. She was reading her book. This was the next morning when we woke up after hiking her back, and so you can see my backpack. But here's Blue Dog. Eva. This was my favorite picture of Blue because he ran to every corner of that lookout, and back here are the mountain ranges on every side, and it's just a clear drop off here. There's no,
all you can see is mountain ranges.
So he ran to each corner and looked out like that, like, what the heck?
Yeah, like the last 20 minutes of the hike, it was in the dark, and we got there and we got up there and we got her all set up. And then the next morning,
remember when we sat down and Eva started crying, and then I was like wanting to cry, and we're like, no, get
we all wanted to cry. It was
we all wanted to cry.
In the dark. I mean, we'd never been up there.
No,
we just kind of figured, well, here's trailhead, let's go for it.
Yeah.
But, CR, it really was racism. And the sad thing was, like, for Eva to get water, she had to carry it on her back, but she had to hike down a mile.
Jeez.
Fill it, carry it back up on her back.
So you got to hike down through the rock slide and then back up with water on your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that was a short hike compared to what it took to get all the way from the river all the way up to the top to where Blue Dog is sitting there now.
Right.
And you know what? We were kind of blacklisted because we helped her, but I would do it over again. I mean, we didn't even think that way. Like,
sounds like it was a forced equality hire.
I don't, she was in school, so she was in college, and it was a student internship. Right. And she needed those summer hours to graduate. So I pray that somehow she was able to graduate that semester, and I hope she's doing well wherever she was. I wish we would have gotten her contact information.
Right.
I think of her often.
That would be kind of cool if this show found her.
Yeah. I don't know her last name. She's a delightful lady.
So Doc Z, you said that she had Forest Service issued equipment. Do you remember what kind of equipment that was?
Just a radio. And then she had they trained her in using the smoke finder, firefighter.
The maps and
you can see if you look at the window there, there's mountains all around. And if you know how to use that thing, it'll show you what the bearing is and then how far it is.
Okay, so she was a fire watch then.
Yeah, it's a lookout star.
Sure.
And then she had to do her own fire weather every day too and call it in.
Yep.
Don't they helicopter the groceries in once a month or something like that?
No.
I couldn't remember, but
so a lot of the towers you can drive up to. Hers was one that you couldn't drive up to. The one that was going to be abandoned and burned down, and you had to hike to that one too.
I mean, it wasn't like they were like, well, Eva, we compare you with someone who's a little more experienced, and let's put you in a tower that's not quite so remote. Or
Right.
let's find another one of the 1,000 plethora jobs that you could do to get this internship.
Yeah.
But we were so naive, it took us a while. It was like in retrospect where we're like, oh,
Right.
that was really bad. Like, that's what
Doesn't
they
matter
were doing.
to us.
Yeah. So you mentioned in last week's episode, like when you went out on fires, they gave you K-Rats. Did they also issue you with K-Rats with like emergency food at the guard station, or
That's all our own.
Get your own?
Yeah, because there's a road that goes there. You can get in your vehicle and you can go to town and get something to eat and bring it back. Yeah.
Now on those K-Rats, do you remember if it was just a blank brown cardboard box, or did it have like any type of like coloring on it?
It was a brown cardboard box, fairly decent, maybe 8 inches across to 6 inches high, 3 inches wide, and you open it up and had everything in it that you needed for a meal.
So were they either green or blue or red?
Just a regular brown cardboard box.
Okay, so those were the early to mid K rations.
Yeah, Korean.
Well, and something I didn't realize, CR, was last week when and Doc, when you were talking about Korean era meals, you weren't just talking about the style or what came out there. You actually, when you were in a firefighter, you guys were eating meals that were made in
1957.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Korea.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess they were all vacuum packed, and depending on what they were.
Well, they weren't vacuum packed. They were canned.
Oh, I suppose. Yeah.
The vacuum packing didn't happen until late 70s, early 80s, and that was the first MRE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So from World War I up until 78, 79, it was something called a K ration or a MTI.
Yeah. Mostly canned, but there were some things like crackers or whatever they'd put in a foil pouch or whatever.
So you would have an A unit and you would have a B unit. And in the B unit tin, they would have crackers. They would have that was like your bread unit, your B unit. So you would have crackers or bread, or you would have they even had fudge that they would put in there, or peanut butter. And then your A unit was your meat tin. So whatever kind of meat, like K rations were split up into 3 meals: breakfast, supper, and dinner.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, your favorite was the scrambled eggs and ham.
Yep.
And I've had that. And those were pretty good.
Yep. The other cool thing is that with every one of those, you got a P38 can opener.
Right.
Yeah.
Survival tool.
That is
a couple
manual.
somewhere.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one upstairs on my dog tag chain.
So let me ask you this, CR, on the foods. For somebody who's like, depending on your duties, like somebody who's firefighting, you need a lot of calories. Were they all the same?
So pretty much. I mean, pretty much
all high calorie.
Yeah, they're all the MREs are high calories, like 2,000 to 3,000 calories or more per meal.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's balanced too. They've got a lot of other stuff in there. Not just it's just not sugar. Yeah.
So the way that the Forest Service does it now is, everybody's in the fire camp. Everybody's in their tent. They meet in the morning for the meeting. The crew bosses meet in the morning for a meeting, and they get the down low from the incident commander on where the fire's at, where it's moving, what it's doing, and then you get your duty assignments for the day. But before you leave, you stop and fill up your water, and they have huge tables and tents where food is either catered out or there's people in the town who have made bagged lunches. And
Wow.
everybody grabs a sack and heads out. And so you get your lunch, you get your water, and then you stop by the equipment depot and grab any equipment you need for the day. Pulaskis, McLeods, shovels, saws, whatever you need. And then you head out. Well, I was showing Dad a video of one. They were out in, I think, California, where they're fighting fire, and the guy goes, "Well, I think it's about lunchtime." And you see him grab the shovel that he's carrying and walks over to the guy with the hose, and he goes, "Yeah, blast that off for me." He washes it off, reaches in his bag, and he grabs out a burrito and throws some butter on it, throws some butter in the shovel,
A Wrangler
puts the
Star.
burrito on the shovel, and walks right over to the active fire and toasts up his burrito.
Pretty creative.
And then when he's
Is that
done,
Wrangler Star?
yeah, that's Wrangler Star. And then he walks back over and washes his shovel off. And it's
Back to work.
very hit and miss on the meals like that, as far as calories and being basically with those meals, it's just a little bit of a break and it's a little bit of a nourishment. Whereas the military MREs are formulated in a test facility to get you enough calories per day, because you're doing pretty much the same thing as wildland firefighters are doing. Is you're on the ground shooting and scooting.
Well, that makes sense then. I was thinking about how do they get enough, but
Right. So, I mean, and they're anywhere from 2,000 to upwards of 6,000 calories a day.
I mean, they've had nutritional scientists put these together, I'm sure.
You need that,
Definitely.
plus water. A lot of water.
Yep. So there is a laboratory called Natick out on the West Coast, and that's all they do. Natick basically has scientists and everything, and that's where they test new uniforms, they test new vehicles, they test food, they test MREs. So that's the military testing facility, and 9 times out of 10, for people who are displaced from wildfires, they will get the humanitarian ration variant of the MRE. Which the humanitarian ration doesn't have as many calories, and it's
Like
kind of
rice and beans.
yeah, and there's more of it. It's not the humanitarian ration is more of a 24-hour ration, as compared to one meal, like a 12-hour ration.
Yeah.
So a little tangent there. Ryan and I do that on the Supernatural News every week, though, too. So we'll go off on a tangent. We had a tangent about Diet Right and Tab on our last show the other day. So getting back to being in the guard station. So is that a seasonal? The Bonanza station, that is a seasonal posting, correct?
Correct. It starts in very early in the spring when there's still snow on the ground. Water hasn't melted enough to run water from the lake that's on the top of the bluff down into, and then all the plumbing is kind of taken apart, so you don't have water lines that are cracked, from freeze thaw and all of that. It's drained. And so in the springtime, you got to get in there really early. So when I went down there, I had to help, get everything set up and get ready to go. And then went back up and got her. And then we came back down together. That was an interesting drive.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll have to talk about that.
Adrian,
fell asleep.
is that our show mascot you're holding?
Yes, it's our Boston Terrier Pookie. She's a female. She's 4,
Cute.
and
She's going to get a mini-me.
she pretty much rules her kingdom here.
Well, she'll have an issue with that.
Yeah, we our trip down there was quite interesting because
Dan fell asleep.
Dan fell asleep on me, and so I'm like, yeah, that's okay, I'll drive, no worries. And then he said before he went to sleep, don't forget to turn somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so like hours and hours, he slept for like 4 hours, and then he wakes up and he's like,
where are we?
oh my God.
Where
He's
the
like,
hell are
you didn't turn, did you? We were down in like Arco, Southern Idaho,
out in the middle
and
of
we had to
nowhere?
go back. We went way too far south, and we had to go back up north.
Did you go all the way
Yeah.
down to Pocatello?
Historical marker, which we renamed a hysterical marker
Hysterical marker.
Miracle marker.
because we laughed so hard. We're like, what? No.
Right.
Oh man, and we were tired, and
Oh, yeah.
we had everything we owned strapped on that yellow Vega, and we
Mhm.
went back up
And
to
strap.
the middle of the mountains and at night.
Oh, we took this road because on the map it looked like it was, this will get us right over to the Salmon River. We can go left. We'll go right in there. It'll be fine. We'll hit Chalice. It'll be wonderful. And
Right.
pavement turns to gravel, turns to mud and rocks.
You would
And
have
there
been fine,
are
like
these
if you're
RV
in for a Jeep adventure, Land Cruiser, that would have been the perfect thing during the day.
four-wheelers. Yeah.
Not when we were exhausted. Like
Right.
we were
Anyways,
trying to get.
I just kept looking at the map. I'm like, okay, we should be a little farther now. Okay, we're over the top now. We should be coming down, and there should be the roads. And the road's getting better and better. Oh, cool. Blacktop, hammered down. Here we go. We're just flying, and we can barely keep our eyes open. And all of a sudden, I realize, Salmon River in front of us. Lock it up. Sliding. Whip the wheel to the left. Sliding. We look down, and there's a river right there. The wheels are right on the edge of the gravel going to the river.
Yeah. You
And we
almost
sit there
didn't
and
make it
say,
in
oh,
for
thank God.
Yeah, because it would have been like
Our twin
newlyweds
angels were with us.
Right.
In tragic death. And
Then we
the
drove
salmon
into
river.
Chalice and looked for the first available bar that was open.
That's when you look
Yeah,
at your
we were
passenger.
shaking.
That's when you look at your passenger and go, crap your pants? Good, because I did too.
Yes.
We were shaking. It was pretty scary. Thought we were going to be dead. And when we went into the bar, because we're like, I was like, I need a drink. And then we go in there and belly up to the bar, right? And we're chatting and everything. And the bartenders had a bet with each other, and they had to ask us, are you newlyweds? And we said yes. And the one bartender goes, hand me the 20.
Anyways, I think we got our drinks paid for.
Nice.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like 11:30 at night, and we still have to drive all the way down to the Yankee Fork and 13 miles up the Yankee Fork.
He had to get up early in the morning to go to work to report.
I had to be working this morning. Yeah.
His first day of working in the guard station.
So well, we've been on for about an hour now, and I think we'll go ahead and end it here. We can always have you back on and talk more about it. I think we might do that because I think you said you were talking to Tom. And
yes, we have a date scheduled up. I think it's like about 6 weeks from now where Tom's going to come on. Maybe even it's in October.
Sure.
A little bit further out than that.
That'll be awesome.
And Tom and Dan are going to talk about their adventures together down there, and that'll be great.
Cool. So I just wanted to, before we ended it, and we might talk a little bit about this, but I want to let everybody know what we're talking about next week. And we're actually going to be talking about a conspiracy. Well, it's something that actually happened, and there's a conspiracy about it. And what we're talking about is we're talking about the happenings of DB Cooper. And if you're not familiar with DB Cooper, he's a gentleman, I think in 1970, I think it was like 72, 73.
I think so, yeah.
Thanksgiving of, he went to the
it was Northwest Orient.
Orient. Yep.
Yeah.
He was at the Portland, Oregon airport. He walked in. Get this. He bought a ticket for $20 cash. Signed in as Dan Cooper, paid $20. No security check at the time. You just walked to the concourse, and it was a Boeing 727.
Yeah.
So it had a set of rear air stairs on that aircraft. Boarded by the air stairs. They get on, they take off, and at some point in the flight, he commandeers said flight, passed a note to a stewardess, and the note said something like, "I have a bomb. Here's what I want to happen. Make it happen." So short story is they fly into SeaTac up in Seattle. What he said he wanted, those are met. The FBI met him with $20,000 in cash and 3 parachutes. The public on the plane was let to deboard. They refueled. And then he and the majority of the flight crew, I think there were 2 or 3 of the flight crew that were able to deboard at SeaTac. But pilot, co-pilot, and I think 2 other stewardesses were held captive.
Yeah.
So they took off, and basically he said, "I want to go to Mexico." Well, they don't have the fuel anyway. At some point during the A to B transit, he tells the stewardesses to go up front and join the pilots. And at some point, the co-pilot goes, "Captain, I've got a warning light for the rear air stairs." At that time, there were no safety interlocks. You could lower the rear air stairs in a 727 in mid-flight. And basically what happened is they felt the bump, and about 20, 30 minutes after that bump, someone went back, the air stairs were down, and he was gone. So he jumped out somewhere. They've never found him to this day. I believe it is still an open case. We will delve into more of it next week. But before we go, Dan, I wanted to get your opinion on DB. Do you think he was, obviously a real guy, but what do you think his motive behind that was?
Prior military, and I think he just wanted to get something back from what he thought he earned.
Because I don't know if he was. They haven't really touched on if he was a Vietnam vet or not. But
he jumps around, shoot.
Right, and that was the thing I was talking to you about was he specified he wanted 3 parachutes, but he didn't specify what kind of chutes. So when he got them at the Portland or at the SeaTac airport, there was a ram air chute. That's the one that's long and rectangular. That one is steerable. That one is a lay person could use.
More of a sport chute.
That's
Yeah.
more of a modern one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was like a Korean era military round chute and a reserve. And usually those round chutes were a static line deployed. So paratroopers, when they jump, they take their lanyard and they clip into a line on the plane, and when they jump out, that line stops and pulls their chute out.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
And it's just basically you can steer it a little bit, but you have to almost climb the risers to get your chute to change directions. So we will talk more about that next week, and then the week after that is going to be another interesting subject, and another one that's got a lot of conspiracy behind it, which is the Philadelphia experiment of early 1940. I think it was like 42, 43.
43, yeah.
And actually, there were some German scientists involved in that, namely one being Mr. Albert Einstein himself.
Well, I think it was based on his theories, and his work, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. It was based on his theories at that time.
Yeah.
So,
And did they have a contract with him, like the government?
Yes. So
we'll have to research it.
The majority of these German scientists that came over from Germany, they left in the early 30s or the late 30s, sorry, before the U.S. joined the war, because they were seeing the writing on the wall, and they didn't want to be working for this crackpot of a dictator.
Yeah, right. Or they didn't want to be captured by the Russians, right? Work for Russia. Yeah.
Right. So, like Einstein, Oppenheimer, although I think Oppenheimer was an actual U.S. citizen.
I think it was the other way around. I think Oppenheimer came from Germany, and wasn't Einstein? Yes, we will know for sure by next week. We'll look it up.
And actually, if anybody wants a good watch, I have not seen the movie yet, but I have seen the documentary. But there is a new movie out called Oppenheimer, and that is about the atomic bomb and the Manhattan Project, and about all the projects, all the practice bombs that were shot off in the New Mexican desert.
Right. When we think about the Pacific Northwest and the
about that,
along the Columbia River, where
all the prevailing
history. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be talking about for the next 2 weeks. Oh, and then also I wanted to let viewers know. So I do have a second podcast. That is called the Steel Rails Podcast, and that is with me and two of my other fellow mechanics from the Minnesota Transportation Museum. We usually come on every other weekend.
Every other Saturday?
Every other Saturday, yep.
And that's, CR, that's a different Facebook page, and it's called...
Yep, that is called the Steel Rails Podcast. I do have a Facebook page. It's not quite up and running yet, but
that's where they would go to catch the
right.
Podcast.
You can also catch it here for the time being, but when I get that page up and running, you'll only be able to catch TSR from there. And tomorrow we are talking about we're doing another round robin, and we're talking about our favorite diesel locomotive. Bailey's favorite diesel locomotive is the SD45. Lucas's favorite is the SD60, and my favorite is the SD80 Mac, which basically worked for Conrail. That was built for Conrail specifically. So go ahead and tune in tomorrow at 7:00, and we can learn more about that. And we will also have Brady on my mind on our upcoming train show. He's great to come on and talk about G-scale stuff and the train museum.
G-scale's huge. I mean, when you compare it to like N-scale
right.
train,
yeah,
G-scale's like, it looks like humongous. Really cool.
N scale you can fit in the palm of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
G scale, you're using both hands to hold it.
To hold what? Like one piece, one caboose, one.
Yep. So like the piece that I bought for myself for my collection. Yeah, it's a good size, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just the locomotive.
Sierra, I have to congratulate you on starting that podcast, because I know you already have like close to 20 members, and you just went out there and did it. And
Right.
there are a lot of people that are interested in trains, whether it's like you work with both the real train and the model trains.
Correct.
And you kind of combine both of them on there. So
Yep.
I know the college I work at, DCTC, we're going to advertise too, because there may be some students that are interested in our student life center. So I'll make sure that I do that as well.
Well, and I remember about 15 to 20 years ago, DCTC had a railroad.
Yeah, they have
college.
training program, right?
Yeah, they had a training program out there. So they had a spur line off of the main line, and then they had like a diesel yard engine with some rolling stock out there, so they could practice coupling and
Yeah, the
decoupling
train
and
goes
moving
right by
freight.
us. I wish we still did that. And
Mhm.
I know we've talked about it. I don't know that anybody is serious about bringing it back, but that would be cool.
Right. Well, and that would behoove BNSF and Union Pacific
Mhm.
and any other of the main companies, in Minnesota, Twin Cities
Mhm.
Western, because I know UP is in a big hiring push right now, because they've got a lot of shoes that they need to be filled, so they're not doing the
I
situation.
just wish they would double on those rides on the work shifts
Well,
for those guys.
right, and that's mainly happening down south. That's Norfolk Southern, and that's not rarely done. That is not safe to have. It can be done. It's not against the law if it's done. If it's done correctly, yeah, it's safe. It can be done. Basically, what they do is behind the main locomotive, they will put a remote control caboose.
It's their technological answer, but it's not quite the same thing.
Right. You're not going to have another set of eyeballs sitting on the other side of the cab of you,
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, that has saved some people, is, the conductor, or the brakeman seeing something that the engineer doesn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be outside or looking at the gauges, because apart from the operating controls, the majority of the trains have slave computer readouts
Mm-hmm.
for the engineer and the brakeman. And the brakeman has a brake switch. So not only does the engineer have brake controls, but the brakeman himself has an emergency stop on his console. So that's, as we get into more technology, like the AC 4400s are more technologically advanced as, say, SDP 40.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a difference between a fly-by-wire airplane and a stick and rudder airplane.
Yeah, so technology really helps. It's a huge, not to say that, it doesn't, but I was just thinking about the human fatigue factor and just being one person on there, and how there are long hours that they really should have like a buddy system.
Right. Well, it's like, Doc Z, when you were in the Navy, multiple people on a shift, when it could be helped to not approach that one person falling asleep on duty, where it was, particular that you stay up and be watchful. And I know we've probably all reach that point.
Well, there's just different levels of it too, CR. Don't you think? Like there's like when you're fresh, you're fully alert. But as your shift goes on, and maybe you're not sleeping, but you're just not as alert, and your attention is divided. And
Right. Well, imagine, and it's probably not much in this state, but imagine you're an engineer and it's you and a brakeman and you get out west of Fargo and it's just nothing but flat land. It's like driving a stretch of flat road. There's nothing to see and it becomes monotonous and you get that driver's fatigue.
Had enough of that, then you hit Montana, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we did digress, but it's been fun, CR.
Right. Well, I guess we can rope it back in and put this one to bed. And then we'll be back on next Friday at 7:00 to talk about DB Cooper.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one.
Everybody for joining us. I don't know if we had any live watchers tonight, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to have watchers on the replay. I've been looking at our followers lately, and it's steadily growing.
We get a lot of replays, yeah, and we're not great always about advertising. Like I could have done more on this.
Yeah,
but
I try to.
Yeah, you do pretty good.
But there's life.
Doc Z, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Mr. Wilderness, Mr. Adventure.
Right.
Been there, done that. Got the scars to prove it.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week. And for our listeners, have a good week until we go once again into the breach. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.